You'd think a brand new home means safety, a fresh start. But sometimes, the darkness doesn't care how new the walls are. These are not abandoned houses, not ruins. These are new homes, untouched, unlived, and still haunted. From voices in the vents, to mirrors that watch back, to something alive behind the walls. These are 5 true new house horror stories. Welcome home.
When my wife and I bought our new home in Arizona in 2022, it was pristine, modern, freshly painted, untouched. We were the first occupants. Everything felt too perfect, like a showroom. That first week, we laughed at how quiet the neighborhood was. By week 2, we stopped laughing. We noticed something strange. The house breathed. At night, the walls would emit soft creaks, rhythmic, like inhaling and exhaling. We chalked it up to settling wood, but then the noises became more intense. Deep groans from the drywall, faint whistles through vents that were turned off. Then one night, while lying in bed, we both heard it at the same time. Inhale. I removed the vent cover in the hallway to check the duct. Inside was something wrapped in plastic, a sealed Polaroid photo. It showed a man and woman sleeping in what looked like our bedroom. Behind them, peeking from the closet, was a gray-skinned figure with black, empty eyes. I called the developer. He denied anyone lived here before. But after digging, I found a blog from a construction worker who mentioned weird vibes at this property. One line stood out. House 14 was the worst. The walls never stayed still. Our address, 14 Driftwood Lane. The last night we spent there, the walls didn't just breathe, they spoke. Every vent exhaled whispers in unison. I remember one line clearly, rising like wind. "You belong to me now." We moved out by sunrise.
In 2021, I rented a brand new townhouse in Reno for work. It was clean, minimal, and had barely been touched. Room 3, a small guest room, had mirrored sliding closet doors. Every time I passed that room, I felt like I was being watched, even though I lived alone. One night, I walked by room 3 and saw a fingerprint on the inside of the mirrored door, despite never using the room. I wiped it. The next night, it was back, and this time, 2 prints, like fingers slowly dragging downward. I started noticing movement in the mirror that didn't match my own. A delay, a blink when I didn't blink. A face half-shadowed behind mine. One night, I recorded myself sleeping using my laptop, and around 2:33 a.m., the mirror door in room 3 slid open by itself. I contacted the property manager. He said the original builder died on site during construction of the 3rd bedroom. I visited the county office and found that room 3 was added last after redesign. The inspector's report noted requesting closure of mirror installation due to structural anomalies. That night, I covered the mirror with a blanket. At 3 a.m., I woke to a loud bang. The blanket was on the floor, and written across the mirror in smeared condensation, "Let me out." I moved the next day.
In 2020, My cousin and her husband bought a beautiful, just-built home in Austin. As a housewarming gift, the realtor gave them a decorative wooden box labeled 17, supposedly from a local artisan. They placed it on the mantle. But that's when the disturbances began. Every night at 1:17 a.m., a clicking sound echoed through the living room. At first, they thought it was the heating system. But when they removed the box one night, the clicking stopped. When they returned it to the mantle, it started again. One morning, my cousin woke up with scratches on her wrist. Not random, but a number, 17. They checked security cameras. From midnight to 2 a.m., the footage glitched, replaced by static and faint audio. You could just make out a voice saying, "Don't forget me." A local antiques appraiser recognized the box. It was part of a set of 20, made by an inmate from a mental institution in 1954. Box 17 was thought to be cursed. Every owner reported paranoia, whispers, and eventually moving out. They burned the box. The next night, the fire alarm went off at 1:17 a.m. On the front lawn, in ashes, sat the box, blackened but intact. They don't live there anymore.
In March 2023, my sister and her husband moved into a brand new 2-story home just outside Portland. Everything was custom built: modern kitchen, solar panels, and a guest room upstairs they rarely used. Within a week, that guest room light started turning on by itself. At first, they thought it was a wiring issue, but the switch would be physically flipped up, not just flickering, every night exactly at 3:13 a.m. They installed a smart switch that logged each activation. It confirmed the light turned on without any command or schedule. One morning, my sister found the guest room door wide open and the bed's duvet perfectly folded, even though they never used the room. She asked her husband. He hadn't touched it. Neither had she. They set up a night vision camera in the hallway. The footage showed nothing entering the room. But at exactly 3:13 a.m., the light flipped on and a shadow passed just under the door, long and thin, not shaped like a person. Curious and shaken, her husband called the lead contractor. The man paused on the phone when he heard the address. He finally admitted the guest room was built over what used to be a cemetery utility road, and during excavation they found bones, which were legally reported and removed. But ever since then, several buyers had walked away after inspections, and the project sat unfinished for 3 years. 2 nights later, the light flipped on again. This time, the hallway camera shut off mid-recording. In the morning, they found the word "hello" written on condensation on the inside of the guest room window. They sold the house within a month.
I moved into a brand new row home in Denver in 2021. I loved it. Smart locks, 0 previous tenants, freshly painted everything. I was excited to be on my own for the first time. But about 2 weeks in, I started hearing scratching behind the walls. It began at night, soft, like a raccoon or mouse. Then it became sharper, more deliberate, like fingernails. Every night at exactly 12:47 a.m., the sound would start behind the wall next to my bed. Always the same rhythm. 3 slow scratches, then silence. I contacted the construction company.
They said no insulation damage had ever been reported, but one rep got quiet when I mentioned the address. He said a subcontractor died during drywall installation, trapped in a room after a beam collapse. But he was found, right? I asked. The rep didn't answer. One night, the scratching was louder, right next to my head. Then it changed. Tapping, like a knuckle rapping from inside the wall. I banged back, hard, and it tapped back, in rhythm. I finally cut into the wall with a utility knife. No animals, no pipes, but wedged deep behind the insulation was a folded work badge for a man named Jeremy Torres. The date said July 13, 2020, the week the rep said someone had died during construction. That night, I woke at exactly 12:47 a.m. The hole I had made in the wall was sealed shut, completely patched and painted over. And in white chalk above it were 4 words: "You shouldn't have looked." I sold the house and never went back.